Hey, good morning, friends. So excited to be here this morning. We're in the middle of kicking off our vacation Bible school. That's what's happening. That's what all this is about. From 6 to 8:30, from Tuesday night to Friday night this week. If you haven't signed up your kids, you can still sign up online today. You can talk to the table out on the plaza. I encourage you to be here. It's going to be an incredible week. You know, we're in the middle of summer vacation season, and I don't know if you got your summer vacations planned yet, but we've been talking about ours. And last summer, we had the opportunity to go to Boston, and that was kind of a trip of a lifetime for me because I'm kind of a history buff. And I was so excited to go to Boston. I hadn't been there, and our family went. And we got, as we were planning the trip, I said, you know what? I was talking to some friends who'd been there, and I said, you know what I want to go see? I want to go see Plymouth Rock. And they're like, yeah, okay. And I said, well, you know, the Mayflower, Pilgrims and all that. And they're like, yeah, don't go. You'll be disappointed. And I said, yeah, I know, but Plymouth Rock. And they're like, I've heard about this since grade school. And they're like, well, you can go if you want, but you'll be disappointed. I said, oh, well, okay. So we went to Boston, and we drove out to Plymouth Rock, and we took a look at it, and I was disappointed. Because it was just a rock, and it's got a stamp on it, and that's it. And so just a couple of weeks ago, I got some friends that are going to Boston. They know we went last year. And they asked me to come over to their house to kind of talk about what they're going to do and plans, things they should see. And I said, oh, we should do this, do this, do this. And they said, but what about Plymouth Rock? And I said, don't go to Plymouth Rock. You'll be disappointed. And they said, but Plymouth Rock. And I said, you'll be disappointed. They said, we're going to go to Plymouth Rock. So they're going to Plymouth Rock, and I think they'll also be disappointed. Because some things in life are that way, where you just kind of say, hey, I'm really excited about this thing. I'm really excited about this. And then expectation doesn't match reality because Plymouth Rock, right? And that's just kind of what happens sometimes in life is you're like, hey, your friend says, you got to try this restaurant. This meal is just amazing. I'm going to try this restaurant. And you go there and you go, it's all right. And expectation didn't match reality. And this happens in life all the time where this sort of thing happens, where you don't have expectation matching reality. And so the question is, what do you do with that? Because it could be even in things more serious than, say, Plymouth Rock, like what happens when you're thinking, hey, I'm going to get married and it's going to solve all my problems. And then you wake up and you go, wait a minute, what did I do, right? Where expectation doesn't match reality. Or you're thinking, this job, man, I've been working for this job for so long, went to school, and then you get to the job and you go, oh, this isn't what I thought. Expectation doesn't match reality. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a Bible story, because we're in the middle of this series called Kings and Kingdoms that talks about what about expectations? What do you do with expectations when expectations don't match reality? This is a true Bible story. We're in the book of Daniel, and in the book of Daniel, it talks about King Nebuchadnezzar. And the first 4 chapters of the book of Daniel are almost as much about King Nebuchadnezzar as they are about Daniel. You see his life change over the course of these 4 chapters. King Nebuchadnezzar was a real man. He lived from 630 BC to 562. In 605, he was in charge of the nation of Babylon's armies, and they were fighting the Egyptians, and his dad died back in Babylon. So he rode through the night to get back to Babylon and claim his throne. And in 605, he claimed his throne, but it wasn't secure. But still, he was one of the most powerful men in history. Babylon itself was wealthy, incredible power. The city itself was amazing. And for King Nebuchadnezzar, being king was all about the power. It was all about what he could do, and he could be large and in charge. And that was King Babylon. Last week, Pastor Jeff walked us through chapter 2, where the king had a dream. And Daniel came in under the power of God, inspiration of God, and told the king the dream. And the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had said that King Nebuchadnezzar, there's this statue. And the head and shoulders are of gold, that's you, and then there's silver and bronze and then iron, and then the feet are made of clay and iron. That's where that saying comes from, feet of clay. And then this stone comes in and sets up this mountain that fills the whole earth. It's talking about the kingdom of God. But Daniel spoke into Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar said to himself, oh, I'm the golden kingdom. You know what? I'm going to symbolize this. And so in chapter 3, verse 1, he builds an image, and it's all of gold. And that's where we are in Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. If you have your Bibles in front of you or a device, open your Bibles to Daniel 3, chapter 1, because it's here where we find out expectation. We learn to deal with expectation versus reality. Let me read chapter 3, verse 1 for you. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and its breadth was 6 cubits. A cubit is kind of a Bible, Old Testament way of measuring. A cubit was basically the measurement from the tip of your elbow to the tip of your fingers. They say normally it's around 18 inches. So this statue or this image was 60 cubits. That's about 90 feet tall. That's as tall as the buildings are, some of the buildings in downtown Fresno. So, I mean, this was tall. And he set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon, and that's where he put this thing. Now, to Nebuchadnezzar, this was a big deal. In this text, in these verses, we find him saying, the text saying that it was set up, King Nebuchadnezzar set this thing up. 7 times it repeats that. And when the Bible repeats something, it means it was important to him. See, for Nebuchadnezzar, this statue, he put a lot of expectations on it. This was a big deal to him, was the statue. And we find out later on that he asked people to bow down and worship it. Well, that's kind of weird, but that's exactly what was going on here, is he set up the statue, and then he had people want to bow down and worship it. Now, we look back at that and we go, why in the world would you set up a statue and have people bow down to it and worship it? I mean, what's a statue going to do? Nothing. And so we look at that and kind of think how quaint or how crazy that you would do that, because what's a statue going to do for you? The answer is statues do nothing. They just stand there. So why would you worship it or bow down to it? It's not going to do anything. But the trouble is, we tend to do the same thing. We are more like Nebuchadnezzar than we'd like to admit. Because in our own lives, we'll take things and put them on a pedestal or make them into an idol when they really can't do things for us that we think they're going to do. And it's just natural human nature. It just happens to be that Nebuchadnezzar had all the money and wealth so he could make it 90 feet tall and made of all gold. For the most of us, we put other things on pedestals in our life, and we bow down to them and hope they're going to do something for us. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about how we tend to put idols up in our lives, put things on a pedestal, and hope they'll do something for us. We set these expectations, but the reality doesn't work. I've got here a table, and the table has 5 things on it that are kind of examples of the types of things that we tend to put up on a statue, on a pedestal for us. And here in America, it's not necessarily comprehensive. There's a lot of different things, but these are just some examples. One thing I've got here is graduation cap. Some of us say, hey, if I just get the education I need, if I just get good grades, and then I go to the college of my preference, then that's going to get me the job that I hope for, which is going to set me up, and I will be satisfied, I will be taken care of. And we think, you know what, if I get that degree, that's going to solve all my needs. That's going to fulfill me. That's going to satisfy me. So we kind of take this and stick it up on a pedestal. Now, sometimes, for some people, it could be college, it could be a degree, it could be a career where you think, if I get promoted and then I join the law firm and then I make partner, then I'll have it made, and then all of those things expectations will come through. So some of us put, like college and promotion and career on there. Others of us, it's that significant other, right? I mean, you're in junior high and you're getting ready for school in the morning, and you think about that girl, and you think, oh, maybe she'll talk to me today. She's in my chemistry class, and I better put on more Axe, you know? And you're thinking, if she talks to me today, boy, it's been a good day, because that girl's up on that pedestal. Or maybe you're dating somebody in high school, and what would the prom proposal look like, right? Or maybe in college, you're like, maybe this is the one, or I'm hanging out. Maybe, what about that person? Or let's say you get married. And then some of us just live for our spouse, and I hope he's happy, or I hope she's happy. And depending on, boy, I just do whatever I can to make her happy. And what happens is we kind of take that perfect relationship in our mind, stick it up on the pedestal, and all of a sudden our whole life revolves around it. What does she think? How can I make her happy? We tend to do that. Another one, and this one's close to home for me, sometimes family. This is a picture that I took a couple of years ago. We were traveling, and this is a picture of me doing a selfie. I'm terrible at selfies. I'm like, wait, how do I, can you guys move? Dad, they're like, Dad, move the camera. I'm like, okay. So this was me taking a selfie in the middle of a little town where we were, and here I am taking the selfie, and then Connor's looking with skepticism like I'm never going to get it right. Michelle and Karis are smiling, hopefully, and Katie's in the back just looking at me with pity, because that's just kind of our family. But here's what happens is that as I'm investing in our kids and they're growing up and so forth and so on, family tends to be an idol for many of us. And it's almost the get out of jail free idol. What I mean by that is when you say, oh, I need to spend time with my family, with my kids, people go, oh, okay, got it. And what happens is some of us will take our family and we'll put it up on this pedestal, and then everything revolves around our kids. Everything revolves around what we're doing with them. We do the sports travel teams. We make sure our kids' grades are okay and they're doing well in school, and I'm invested spending time with them. And we can take our family and take it and stick it up there and make that where all of our expectations lie. And that can happen. It's one of the things I tend to fall into. Another one is, I've got here, it could be possessions. I've got here a 1968 Mustang model. The reason I've got this model is because I always thought a 1968 Ford Mustang was the awesome car. I just like that car. I've loved them for years. And so I had a friend of mine a while back who said he's got a 1968 Corvair convertible. Mustang convertible. And he said, Chris, I'd be happy to sell that to you. And I said, really? And then he told me how much it was worth, because it's a collectible. And I said, I'm not happy to buy that from you. So what he did is he gave me this instead, all right? So here I have, but what happens is that some of us make possessions our idol. In other words, everything we do works around getting that house, getting the perfect house, or maybe the boat, or your 401k, your retirement, because then if I collect enough, then I'll be secure and I'll retire, and so our possessions, whether it be in the bank account or in the driveway, become an idol for us. Or some of us, we've got an iPad here, has to do with popularity. Could be social media, how many likes you get. I'm going to travel to, Boca Raton and take a picture and Instagram and pop it on there, and then people are going to see me and they'll be popular because I get a bunch of likes, and they think, cool, oh, and you're at Machu Picchu this week. That's awesome. Or, you know what, I've taken this picture or this accomplishment, and you get all the likes, and you get those likes, and it's like, that makes me feel worthwhile, and boy, you know what, I'm living for the experience. I'm living for the popularity. And all of a sudden, you put those things on. Guys, this is just so natural for all of us. Just normal, because these things yell at us, and they say, hey, put me on top. I'm going to fulfill you. I'm going to make your expectations, I'm going to make them come true. And that's what happens to Nebuchadnezzar here. Now, I don't know where you are or which one of these things or others. Could be fitness, it could be a hobby, it could be whatever. I don't know what you tend to put on there and then circle your life around. But Nebuchadnezzar, it was power. And that's what it was. All these things are fine, but they don't belong on a pedestal. One theologian said this. He said, there's only one person that should be our ultimate concern. And our ultimate concern should be God himself. That anything else cannot carry that weight, although we give it that weight. So if you want to know what tends to be on the pedestal of your life, if we want to know that, we need to ask, what do we dream about in our spare moments? What are we thinking about? What do we talk about? What do we worry about? And if you answer that question, you're going to get an idea of what you tend to put up there. What do we put on our calendar? What do we spend money on? If it's the first place and the center of your world, what we learn from this story today is that you're going to be disappointed. So let me unpack for you out of this text 3 truths about idols. 3 truths about idols. The first truth we find in the first 3 verses, and that is that idols promise fulfillment. Idols promise fulfillment. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather, he lists in the list here, the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar set up. Then the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So what he does is he sends out word, because he's trying to consolidate his power. He sends out word to everybody who was anybody, and this list includes military commanders, it includes providential commanders, civil leaders, all the way down to treasurers, to the justices of the courts, to the mayors, the local mayors. And he said, I want you all to come, and I want you to gather around this thing that I've set up, and I want you to bow down to it. That's what he's saying here, because he thought if he did that, then it would fulfill his dreams for consolidating his power. He said, if I set up that idol, it's going to fulfill me. See, idols promise fulfillment. That is true with any of these, is that if you take popularity and you think, if I get enough likes, if I travel enough, if I get enough Instagram pictures, then it's going to fulfill me. I'm going to have this sense of it satisfies me. Or if I spend enough time with my family and, spend time with my kids and da-da-da-da-da, you're going to find that it fulfills you. That's what idols say. Idols, the second thing is that idols require allegiance. Idols require allegiance. Look at these next few verses. Verse 4 on, it says, and the herald proclaimed, this guy gets up in front of this whole crowd and he says, you are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, you're to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Verse 6, and whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Verse 7, therefore, and I get this therefore, I know what it's there for, as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, the pipe, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. If I were going to be thrown in a fiery furnace too, I would fall down when I heard that music playing, because it's just, who wants that? Who wants to go through that? See, what happens is idols require allegiance. They demand allegiance. Idols are not something that you can just set up and then it just doesn't do anything. What it does is it requires you to respond to it with allegiance and with sacrifice. It becomes a big deal in your life. See, what he did, Nebuchadnezzar, he set this up as a loyalty test. If I want to get everyone together and make sure they're loyal to me, so I'm going to set the statue up, and then I'm going to see how they respond because it demands allegiance. Notice here in verse 4, it says, fall down and worship. Worship is not a term of civil obedience. Worship is a tone of religious obedience. When you worship something, another translation of worship is to magnify. In other words, it becomes big. What you worship becomes big. And so for Nebuchadnezzar, he was demanding that the statue become big to everyone. I want you to worship it. And what we put up on a pedestal, by necessity, must become big. We must make it big. It becomes a big deal. We sacrifice time to it. We sacrifice energy to it. We pay tuition. We go on dates. You fill in the blank. Whatever it is, it becomes big in our lives. It becomes big emotionally. Now, I don't know which of these or whatever other ones you might have in your life that you tend to put on a pedestal, but you can tell when you're getting close as to what it is because it's big in your life. It becomes big to you. It's a big deal. And you emotionally, it becomes big for you. If that's an emotionally big thing, then there's a good chance that it might be on a pedestal for you. My dad used to have a saying. He'd say, when I would react to something, he said, Chris, that's a dollar reaction to a nickel issue. If you got a dollar reaction to a nickel issue in your life and you do it regularly around the same thing, there's a good chance that thing's on a pedestal and you're making it bigger than it needs to be. Because we tend to do that. Idols promise fulfillment, idols require allegiance, and listen closely to this one. Idols become the judge. Idols become your judge. Verse 8, therefore at the certain time the Chaldeans, those are native Babylonians, came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever, because that's what you say to a king who can take your head off. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, the pipe, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship the golden image shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Like he needed to be reminded, right? Verse 12, there are certain Jews who you've appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon. That happened in chapter 2. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you've set up. Verse 13, then Nebuchadnezzar, in a furious rage, that's a dollar reaction to a nickel issue, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought, and they brought these men before the king. Now, we're going to find out next week what happens with these guys. Pastor Andrew is going to unpack this and help us understand what happens with them. But today we're talking about Nebuchadnezzar and his desire for power and authority to be set on a pedestal in his life. See, idols promise fulfillment, they require allegiance, and then they become the judge in your life. See, how people reacted to the image, the idol in Nebuchadnezzar, was how he judged them. And the idol becomes a judge for us. Here's the way this works. It determines our value if it's sitting on the highest pedestal in our life. It determines our value. Let me give you an example. If your college career and what college, or your high school grades, or what college you're going to get into, or how you're doing in your classes is the highest thing on a pedestal in your life, you're going to live and die by your report card because it's going to judge you. And so if you get an A, yes, I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I'm doing well. You get a C, you get an F, and you're like, oh, my life's falling apart. I'm not worth much because this idol is judging you. If your sweetheart is the most important thing in your life and how she or he responds to you is the thing that's on the pedestal, then you're going to live and die by whether or not they texted you back, by how they responded to you. And some of you have been in marriages where you did everything you could to keep your wife. And you did everything you could to keep your husband. And that was the most important thing in your life, and you still got divorced. And you're sitting in judgment under this right now. And you're like, oh, my life is a failure because my idol judged me. And guys, that's just the way they work. Idols promise fulfillment. Idols require sacrifice, and idols sit in judgment on you. Sometimes it could be that your family, you did everything you could for your kids. You spent all that time, and then your kids went off the rails, and you're thinking, oh, why? I'm not even enough. I'm not worthy. It's because idols judge people. It's what they do. Whatever you put on the pedestal in your life is going to judge you. And guys, that's a vicious, vicious trap to get in, where you set something up and you make it all it can be, and then you either are the sum of your victories or the sum of your failures related to that thing. It's a horrible trap to be in. No wonder it rips us apart, because idols become the trap. It's a vicious no-win trap. Now, we know from these guys' story that there's only one being that deserves to be on the pedestal, and that is God and his son, Jesus Christ. They're the only one. We know that in our hearts if we followed God for any time. But we tend to switch and replace. We know that, but it's just hard to do. I mean, what do we do? Do we just, think about God all the time? Because these things are all good. These things are all good. But how do I replace that? How do I keep that from being number one? I'm going to join a monastery, because then I don't have to worry about all this stuff. I'm going to become a monk. Well, the truth is that's not the way it happens. We could think we'd want to become a monk, but it doesn't work out either, because we think we're just going to think about God. It doesn't work that way. There was this guy who said he wanted to become a monk, and so he went to a monastery and talked to the abbot. That's the head monk. And the abbot said, "You must take a vow of silence. You can only say 2 words every 3 years." The man agreed. After the first 3 years, the abbot came to him and said, "Hey, what are your 2 words?" "Food cold," the man replied. The abbot made sure the meals were warmed up. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words this 3 years?" "Robe dirty," the man exclaimed. The abbot ordered his robe to be cleaned. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "What are your 2 words this 3 years?" "Bed hard." The abbot made sure the mattress got restuffed. 3 more years went by, and the abbot came to him and said, "So what are your 2 words?" "I quit," said the man. "Well," the abbot replied, "I'm not surprised. You've done nothing but complain since you got here." Guys, the key is not to run away and join a monastery. What we're going to do is talk about how to make sure that God is in that place in our lives. How do we get out of that trap? Number one, here's 3 things to do. Number one, don't expect from idols fulfillment they cannot give. Don't expect from idols fulfillment they cannot give. Idols have limitations. You think you're going to marry this girl of your dreams or this guy of your dreams, and then you wake up a few months later and you go, "Oh, this is real." This is reality. And because idols have limitations, or they also, and this is just reality, idols end. They come to an end, either at the end of your life or a season closes and they go on to something else. If you made making the corner office and working really hard at your business, going to college and getting a degree and making partner, guess what? There's a time when they hand you a golden watch and say thank you. It just ends, even in the very best of instances. One of the areas that I tend to struggle with is family, because I love my family and I've invested in them. And Michelle and I are in a season where there's a change, and it's a good change, but it's empty nest. That's kind of where our kids are. They're in their early 20s, and they're spreading their wings and flying off. Just about 3 weeks ago, our oldest daughter, Karis, got an apartment with a friend, and so she moved out, and she's excited about it, got a job, and I always thought, when I was younger, I was thinking, yes, then I can do my own thing. And now I'm like, wait a minute. There's a little bit of, it's kind of quiet around here. And I'm feeling that a little bit right now as Karis is moving out. About 3 weeks ago, she said, when she moved out, she said, "Dad, can you help me pack up my stuff and move?" And I said, "Sure." And so went into her room, and she took her clothes all out of her closet and sorted them into Goodwill, and I want to take to the apartment. And then she took her books and sorted them into, giveaway, and I want to take these to the apartment. And then she had a couple of shelves that are just kind of that memory stuff that you have kind of propped up in your room, or at least she did. And it had all sorts of this stuff, and I'm down on the floor. She's up on the, getting stuff off the shelf. She's handing it to me. I'm wrapping it and putting it in these boxes for her to take away. And she hands me this little cow, and it's a little farm cow, and I'm like, Oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, all these emotions came over me. And I was taken back 20 years to where we used to go to vacation on the Oregon coast pretty much every year on the Oregon coast. And when we were there for a week, and I said to her, Karis, when you leave, when we go, she's probably 4 or 5 years old, you can take a little souvenir if you want, the trip. And so she's 4 or 5. She was into farm animals at the time. And so she went into the souvenir shop, and they had this end cap with all these little farm animals. And she picked up, she sat down, and she looked through all of them, and she picked up this little cow. This little cow, she showed me. And she picked up this little cow, and she handed it to me. She said, I want this one. And I said, oh, okay. Hey, sweetheart, this one's got a broken horn on it. You might want to get a different one. And she goes, no, that's why I picked it. I want to take care of it. Now, for this dad, all of a sudden I'm packing these things up, and it's a close of a season. Now, we're going into other cool seasons, where I'm relating to her as an adult. But here's what happens. Idols end. They come to a close. And if we put this on the pedestal, and we don't recognize that sort of thing happens, it's going to tube us. It's going to put us into a tailspin because they don't offer the fulfillment we want. So Jesus said it this way. He said in John chapter 4, he said, talking to the crowd, he's saying, crowd, don't drink from water sources that make you thirsty again. If you do that, you'll never be satisfied. He said, drink from me, and out of you, you'll have so much that water will flow out of you. You'll be eternally satisfied. Guys, Jesus says, put me up there, and you will have deep fulfillment and satisfaction that you cannot imagine by trying to put all this other stuff up there. It just doesn't work that way. So the first thing is don't expect from idols fulfillment they cannot give, because only an unlimited God can meet your ultimate desires. Only an unlimited God can meet your ultimate desires. Number 2, give Jesus the throne of your life. Give Jesus the throne of your life. Look at verse 12 here. There's a little phrase in here that sneaks in here that is key. Verse 12 says, there are certain Jews who you have appointed to the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Here's the phrase. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. In other words, the idol, the image, was not about the image. The image was about who was on the throne. Nebuchadnezzar saw the image of it as a reflection of himself. And if we're honest, that's what happens with these two, is we think, if I do well in school, if I get that job, if I get the promotion, I'm all right. I'm okay. That's a reflection of me, not just how I'm doing in school. Or if I've got a family that turns out great and the kids are all doing really well, it's because I did a great job parenting. It's because this reflects on me. Nebuchadnezzar, these people don't respect you. Well, the truth is, they weren't bound down to the idol. Or if I have a good 401k and I can do a retirement and I've got the great car in the garage and all that, it's because it's about me. See, when we're dealing with idols, it's not enough to replace an idol, because it's not about the idol, it's about who's on the throne of our lives. And what happens is, if you want to replace an idol, if you want to have true satisfaction, you got to give Jesus the throne of your life. Idols are not about the idol, they're about who's on the throne. The only way out of this idol trap is to replace who's on the throne of your life. And for most of us, whether we'd like to admit it or not, we tend to put ourselves on the throne of our life, and then the idols are a reflection of that. And guys, if you want to get out of the idol trap, the only way is to replace who's on the throne. Most of us who are here this morning have understood that Jesus is God's Son, and that He died on the cross for our sins, rose from the dead so that we could have a relationship with God. We put our trust in Him. But even if we've done that, sometimes it's really easy for these things to slip into first place in our life. So what I would like to do is to invite you into kind of a mental exercise right now, just an imaginary exercise. So what I'd like to ask you to do is close your eyes and imagine something with me, all right? So what I'd like to ask you to do is, based on our conversation so far today, imagine in your own mind a pedestal where an idol or something like that is on it. And picture in your own mind what an idol might be for you. Got it? Now, what I'd like to ask you to do, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, I'd like to ask you to take that idol and take it off, and then picture a throne in your own mind, in your own heart. And if you're willing to, invite Jesus to sit on that throne, and then he automatically becomes the first place, the idol in your life. He automatically becomes the ruler in your life. And he says, I will never disappoint you. I will fulfill you. And all that other stuff becomes secondary. And I would encourage you to do that and make that commitment in your own mind if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. Because that's the only way to get out of the trap. Father, I thank you for those that did that this morning. I pray that you would help us to follow you with our own heart, to put you at the throne at the center of our lives, so we can get out of this idol trap. It's in the name of Jesus I pray, amen. One more thing I want to tell you before we're done, and that is the third thing to do is to make Jesus the loudest voice you hear. Because what happens is when you hear Jesus' voice and he's at the throne in the center of your life, you need to lean in to hear him. You know what it's like to be at a party when voices are loud and they're all yelling and you can hardly talk to a friend. You're wanting to hear from a friend. And what you do is you lean in close and say, hey, what are you saying? Can you talk to me? Speak louder. Or sometimes you pull the friend outside so you can have a little quiet time. That's what you need to do. You need to hear Jesus' voice, because the idols are going to say to us, the idols of this culture, they're going to say, they're yelling and they're going to say, you're not enough. You got to prove yourself. You're the sum total of your failures and successes. But you got to listen to Jesus, who loves and forgives you if you're a child of his. And he says, you're not condemned. You're accepted. You're enough. You're free. You are my child. I've got you in my hands. I got a plan for you. I'm at work in your life. I love you. And that's what the Lord Jesus says to his children. And you got to lean in to listen, because the voice you listen to is the voice that leads you. The voice you listen to is the voice that leads you. And this will lead you back to him on the throne or lead you back to idols, depending on the voice you listen to. Guys, we talk to you about reading your Bible every day. We talk to you about being in a Bible study. We talk to you about, Pastor Andrew talks to you about opening you version every day. So that's the verse that pops up on your screen. The reason is not because it's a religious thing to do or you need to do it because it's kind of a churchy thing to do. It's so you're listening to the loudest voice. It's so you're hearing the voice of Jesus instead of these other voices. So guys, an application for you is just to daily listening to the voice of God through his word. Next week, Pastor Andrew is going to look at part 2 of this story. And we're going to find out what happens with those 3 guys. But today I want to encourage you. Put on the throne of your life, Jesus, because you won't be disappointed. Let me pray for us, all right? Father, I thank you for the fact that you remind us that we can't get something from idols they're not designed to give. I pray that you will please help each person here to put you on the throne of their life so they can walk through life asking what you would have them do instead of asking what the idols would have them do. So in the name of Jesus we pray.